Question number 5, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change Issues. Will the government's proposed approach to accounting for forestry and other land uses from 2021 reduce the quantity of greenhouse gas emissions New Zealand is liable for after 2021 when compared with the existing accounting approach? And if so, by how much?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while we have a proposed approach, the detail of how it would work or how we would transition to it, or even confirming whether we will stick with the proposed approach, haven't been decided yet. So it's not possible to answer the member's question as it's based on hypotheticals.
Mr. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
I seek leave to table New Zealand's proposed accounting approach outlined in an MPI briefing dated 13 November 2015, received under the Official Information Act, to demonstrate that it's more than hypothetical.
Order. I just need to check. Is it freely available if members want it on the web?
It was obtained under the OIA, sir.
That doesn't actually answer my question. I'll hear from the Honourable Paula Bennett.
It's actually available on the UN website. That we put it there in November last year.
And on that case, I will not be putting the leave. Further supplementaries?
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Does the Minister believe that her preferred approach for forestry accounting, even if it is hypothetical in the sense it hasn't been finalised, the preferred approach under the Paris Agreement would have environmental integrity through a reduction in net emissions?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, it would depend on how we transition to it and what the rules and details are around it.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Does she accept, given the details in the MPI document, that the timing of this preferred accounting approach could mean that it appears New Zealand's emissions would reduce despite no actual emission reductions taking place in the real world?
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr. Speaker, I'm told that the timing of them looking at it in 2020 is based purely on the Paris Agreement coming into force then and the new rules after Kyoto, not necessarily because it's in line with when we might have a whole lot of trees being cut down.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
As a general judgment on her part, does she accept that if governments reduce emissions on paper, but not in the real world, where climate change affects real people and ecosystems, the real world will be significantly worse off?
Well, Mr.
The
Speaker,
Honourable Paula Bennett.
It is my judgment, and actually I've said publicly a number of times, that I'm very interested in how New Zealand does reduce its emissions. It's part of the work that's going on now that we've got through a variety of task force advisory groups, even some of the work that the members involved in internationally as well. That is part of what we want to do to actually reach that 2030 target, as well as look at forestry and planting more trees, and equally to look at international markets. So do I want to reduce emissions in New Zealand? Absolutely.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Does the Minister accept that the proposed rule changes in the MPI document, if accepted, would unjustifiably write off nearly a year's worth of greenhouse gas emissions from the government's books?
Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Paula
Bennett. It would completely and utterly depend on how we would transition to it. So as the report says, actually averaging is a worthwhile discussion to be having, and we are concerned that we want to see more trees being planted as they're being chopped down, and at the moment there's kind of disincentives for that, so we're looking at what we can do, and averaging is one way to get over that. There are other consequences of doing it, which I freely admit, and that's part of the work that is going on at the moment, and decisions have not been made.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Kennedy-Graham.
Would she be concerned about the possibility that other countries, including bigger emitters, would follow New Zealand's example and simply change the rules of the game so that they can avoid doing something about climate change themselves as well?
Well, Mr.
The
Speaker,
Honourable Paula Bennett.
I'm certainly advised by the officials that are working internationally and looking at the Paris Agreement rules now that we've got them in place, that a number of countries are looking at exactly what we are, and it's what they need to do. So we are looking domestically through phase 2 of the ETS, and we're also looking at what the rules of engagement, if you like, will be now the Paris Agreement has been signed and ratified.
Thank you. Supplementary, sir.
Supplementary question, Dr Kennedy-Graham.
If the government were to succeed in getting these preferred rules accepted and then implements the proposed accounting rules, will it make its 2030 climate change more ambitious in order to compensate?
Mr. Speaker,
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
it would depend, as I've said, on what those rules end up being, what the transition is, but certainly all of that will be made transparent and I'm sure will be openly debated.